Hey, what's up, guys? You're watching DIY Dozier, and on today's episode, we're going to talk about how I made a plaque out of hardwood flooring. Okay, so I had a project I completed a little while back, and it was completed using pieces of 3-inch wide hardwood flooring planks. I had leftovers, I had scraps. So this particular wood was white oak, and I was doing this for a friend. I got a sheet of 1/2 inch birch plywood laying around in the garage. What I did was I took the sheet of plywood, I cut it down to the size pretty much of the plaque that I was going to want to make, and then I laid down wood floor glue onto the plywood. I took the oak flooring and I placed it on top. I interlocked it together and I clamped it in place. After I clamped it in place, I let it cure overnight, and then the next day I brought out what I was going to use for a template on my plaque, and I laid it down onto the wood. I traced out the dimensions that I was going to use, made sure I rounded all my corners and everything, and began to place my design where I wanted it on the plaque. So the whole story behind this plaque is a good friend of mine is a pro golfer, and his last name is Long, and this wood that I'm using was actually donated by him just out of the kindness of his heart. He had a lot of leftover wood flooring from his house when he did a renovation, and he knew I was doing some work on my floor and I could use the wood. It was exactly what I needed, so I got it from him, and essentially I used what I needed, and this is the leftover scrap. I decided to do something for him in return, which was make this plaque that he now has hanging in his house. So the top of the plaque says, "It's been a long day," and like I said, his last name is Long, and he's a pro golfer. So if anyone can imagine, playing golf doesn't sound like a bad gig to begin with, and yeah, so a long day. The word "long" is in all caps. And it shows a golfer here swinging a golf club. So essentially what I did was I laid down my design on the wood floor, and I traced out my border exactly where I wanted it at. I used a square to make sure everything was perfectly straight. Measure twice, cut once. After I got my design completely laid down the way I liked it, what I did then was I took a stick of Elmer's glue, and what I did was I just pretty much smeared it on the back of the piece of paper, and then I stuck the paper onto the wood. And once I got the paper stuck onto the wood, I then used a Dremel tool. I came out and I traced out all the letters with the Dremel tool the way I liked it, and I traced out the design, the outline, all the edges, essentially all of the edges that were black on this white piece of paper. After I got it all traced out, then I went ahead and carved out with the Dremel lightly all of the shaded areas. After I got it all carved out deep, then what I did was, leaving the template that I had in place on the wood, I took some black spray paint and I spray painted over that template. That way when I removed it, it would leave only the carved out places getting painted for the most part. Any overspray that gets on the project is not a big deal, as I was going to sand it anyway. Let it sit and dry, pulled off the template that was on there, and then I took a sander and I sanded the top of the wood to make sure it was all uniform, nice, smooth, looked good, and it got off any residual overspray on the wood. And then I came through and I used a stain of my choice, which was Minwax. I love Minwax. They make a great product. The stain is very good quality. I used a foam brush, and I applied the stain evenly across the plaque. And after the plaque was stained, I let it sit overnight for curing, and then I came back the next day and I added a polyurethane coat over it. You can use whatever polyurethane coat you want to use. I once again used Minwax gloss polyurethane coating. I applied it with a foam brush, and after one coat, I came back and I sanded the plaque with 400 grit sandpaper after it cured overnight, and then I applied a second coat of the gloss Minwax polyurethane. And after that was dried overnight, I didn't sand it anymore. I just it looked really good. There wasn't anything in it worth sanding out, so I went ahead and mounted on the back, which you can't see. I mounted a picture frame hook on the back so it can be hung on the wall, you know, because it is a plaque. So anyway, this project wasn't really something that I planned on sharing. Somebody kind of pushed me in the direction to go ahead and share it, so it's easy to do. Anybody can do it with a Dremel tool, like I said, a carving bit. You could buy a set of carving bits at Lowe's for, you know, a couple bucks if you've got a Dremel tool. This is really easy. Like I said, these pieces of wood, they lock into place. Just make sure they're tight, and then when you glue it down onto the piece of plywood, you know, come back and you cut it all out evenly with a jigsaw is what I did. Just take a jigsaw, cut out the shape that you want. This is a project that can be done in a couple of hours total. It's not too difficult to do. It took me about an hour of carving with the Dremel tool, just being very careful to not, you know, take out too much anywhere. Obviously, if you're going to be doing this, you're going to need some eye protection. So some clear lens glasses, a Dremel tool, a couple of Dremel tool bits. You're going to need some glue for the hardwood flooring to glue to the surface of the plywood that you're going to be using as your backer board. You'll need polyurethane. You'll also need the stain of your choice, and then you will need the black spray paint. If you have any questions or comments, drop those down below, and I'll be sure to respond to them in a timely manner. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Be sure to click like and subscribe if this video helped you out, and to be notified of future content being released. Until next time, guys, share the knowledge, share the passion, and share the skill. And as always, do it yourself.